Public cloud, private cloud, hybrid cloud, multi-cloud, infrastructure as a service, cloud compute, hyperscale, mumbo jumbo. Which one of these is right for you, and how do we match you to the right environment for your business? Hi, I'm Max Clark. I'm the CEO of ITBroker.com. And a massively common discussion on the internet, let's just say, is cloud and cloud costs and what you can do to lower your cloud costs. And there's plenty of papers and white papers and blog posts and talking heads and people on Twitter and God knows what's else going on right now talking about your cloud costs. So let's talk about it, because why not? But I'm going to say a couple of things. And the first thing is yes, you are spending too much money on your cloud. I don't know you, but I will tell you that you're probably spending 30 to 40% more on your cloud than you should be. I don't care how big you are. We have customers ranging, in the public clouds from, $10,000 a month to $2 million a month and plus. And the universal fact of life across every single one of them is there's a 30 to 40% number within that they could reduce. Now, that's not appropriate for most companies. And so we don't walk into these conversations saying, hey, look, you should do all these different things because, we know you're going to save 30 or 40%. Why? Well, number one recommendation that comes out is going to be use of reserved instances. And a reserved instance may or may not be appropriate for your business. I mean, do you want to lock yourself into a 3-year contract for a specific compute type when you want to get rid of that compute type in the next 12 or 18 months? So there's a lot of business decisions that go into cloud and cloud spend more so than just, are you spending too much and can you spend less? So instant type, proper instance sizing, is the other one of you're on a blank, fill in the blank, weird acronym instance type, and you should be on this instant type before, or you're on classic and you should go to VPC, or you should do this, or you should go to that. And all these things have real cost to you also in terms of, do you even have the technical staff that even knows how this application is running well enough to be able to migrate that application to another thing? And the chances are probably not. Or if you do, they're so busy doing other things, there's no way that you can distract them for months in order to make this migration happen. So, coming after you and saying, hey, look, you should do all these things. Oh, what's the other favorite one? The other favorite one is you should automatically turn off your instances at night, every night. Okay, that sounds great on the surface, except now you have to make sure that you're properly tagging and identifying the instances when you create them, or you're going to shut things down that you don't need. Now, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit that you should be looking at with clouds. We'll just use Amazon because it's the most popular, right? Do you have unattached EBS volumes? I guarantee you that if you have any size cloud and you have, instances, EC2 instances starting and stopping, you have a ton of EBS volumes that are just sitting out there unattached. They're costing you money every month that you just don't even know exist. So, DynamoDB TTLs. We've seen lots of environments where they're spending $250,000 a month on DynamoDB, and just by enabling TTLs, they can lower that cost in half. Now, enabling the TTL has a huge cost component too because of how Amazon actually writes the Dynamo. And these become really specific conversations and something that we can help you with that are actually specific to you. But are you spending too much money on your cloud? Absolutely, you're spending too much money on your cloud. So, next version of this conversation gets into this great chat about multi-cloud. So everybody in the market is talking multi-cloud, 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 blah, 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 blah. It's all bullshit. Multi-cloud doesn't exist. Why does multi-cloud not really exist? It's because of data. Now, somewhere you have your data. Your data is in a data lake, it's in a data warehouse, it's in a database, it's in a bucket, it's somewhere. Your data is somewhere. And there is real cost with taking that data out of a region within one cloud provider, let alone taking that data out of one cloud provider and shifting it to another cloud provider. So this whole concept around multi-cloud is really, really, really specific to how your data actually sits, where it is, and what is used. Now, what's really common? Again, what's really common is we see a lot of companies that are using Amazon that are moving over to GCP because they want to use BigQuery, Bigtable, the machine learning pipelines available in Google, and then start evaluating whether or not they want to bring their compute over to Google as well. And there's lots of cases where a wholesale migration from Amazon to GCP or Amazon to AWS makes a lot of sense. But to do that effectively, you need a partner that can help you through this process. And you also want a partner involved because the partner can bring along market development funds to help pay for that migration for you between one cloud vendor and another cloud vendor. So that's a big secret there. Don't try to do this yourself. Get a partner involved. The partner will actually help pay for that migration for you between your different clouds. Now, so multi-cloud is also a marketing terminology, and it's a thing that kind of exists. But I mean, again, if you're spending, I don't know, let's just put around numbers. If you're spending $1 million a month on Amazon, maybe you're spending $100,000 a month on GCP. So you're multi-cloud, but are you really multi-cloud? Probably not. What is real? Well, what's real is what now is called hybrid cloud. So now this whole thing of hybrid cloud just means you have a public cloud provider and you still have a physical data center somewhere. And this is where the math gets really exciting, because the economics on a physical data center is massively in your advantage. We're talking 80% reduction numbers off of a public cloud spend. And that sounds crazy to say out loud, and you're probably listening to this and saying, Max, you're completely just making numbers up. But I kid you not, we've seen reductions of upwards of 80% a month on moving an application out of a public cloud into an actual data center environment. And why is this? Well, first off, the cost of the actual compute and your server equipment and your compute infrastructure is so much lower when you're actually purchasing it or leasing it yourself that you're going to see massive savings, because you also are virtualizing your stack. You're running containers, you're running Docker, you're running Kubernetes, you're doing something along those lines. You get a huge efficiency off your physical equipment. The other thing that people don't really talk about a lot is your data egress cost. Data egress is an absolute killer in clouds. Cloud, I mean, They price based on dollars per gigabyte, and we've had customers that get really excited and they're like, oh my goodness, we got this PPA from this cloud vendor because we're putting out like 20 petabytes a month of egress costs, and we've got our cost down to 2 cents per gig, on this private pricing deal with the cloud vendor, and high fives, and we're so excited. And then you have to come back and you have to say, well, yeah, you're paying about $8 per megabit on a 95th percentile for that egress traffic. And list rate at your volume from an actual network provider is like 15 cents per megabit. So you're paying 8, and the cloud vendor, you could be paying 15 cents. So if you have a heavy bandwidth egress application, if you're heavy CDN usage, the data transfer cost will absolutely cream you in terms of what you're paying that cloud vendor. So now we see hybrid cloud as a real thing, and we're seeing a lot of companies that were originally resistant to this idea are now adopting this. And once they actually see the economics of it, become big fans of hybrid cloud. And I get it. You don't have data center expertise. You don't have people on the ground in the Ashburn, Virginia area, or in Singapore. And guess what? You don't need it. There are plenty of service providers that specialize in the logistics related to purchasing server equipment, installing a basic operating system on it, and putting it into a data center for you. So you can still leverage almost everything that you get out of your public cloud in terms of this provisioning cycle and physical management without actually having to do it yourself. You still get the semblance of elasticity if you negotiate your contract properly in terms of being able to turn things down in one place and bringing them up in another place. And guess what? Your costs are so much better. So what we see now that's become very common is we see customers figuring out what their actual cloud spend is. Let's say it's $1 million, and looking at that from a standpoint of reducing that $1 million spend to maybe $300,000 or $400,000 a month with that cloud provider, so they can still have elasticity, they can still have peak capacity, they can still deal with all the unknowns. But it's not putting $700,000 a month into a data center. It turns out they have $300,000 or $400,000 running with a public cloud, and maybe $300,000 running with the data center all in. So you look at that cost structure and you're going to say, no, they didn't reduce 80%. Yes, in this case, they reduced 40% in that evaluation, but they have a lot of elasticity left. They still have their public cloud environment. They have a lot of flexibility going forward. So when you're in a conversation with somebody and they want to talk to you about saving money on AWS, and your eyes roll into the back of your head and you completely tune them out and you glaze over, I do not blame you, because it really is, it's public cloud cost management is like the dark arts of IT spend management control, and it really requires a lot of specific things related to what you're doing in that public cloud. Same thing with multi-cloud. Everybody wants to talk about their multi-cloud strategy. Some are really good, but it really also is so specific to your business and how your application is actually running. And does your application even support this idea in the first place? Or should you skip the whole multi-cloud nonsense and just go back to a hybrid environment where you have a physical data center, and you have a physical data center that exists to run your consistent workload that you know and love, and then have your public cloud environment to deal with that elastic workload that you know is coming down the pipeline as well. And this is the best of both worlds, and this is where you should probably be, and this is the place that we take a lot of our customers. So at itbroker.com, we will help you understand this. We will help you understand what's actually going on with your workload, what makes your application actually tick, what you can actually pull off, what is just hype nonsense marketing mumbo jumbo garbage, and what you can actually achieve, and how do you move from a API-driven web interface public cloud environment to a data center environment, and how does that actually work for you?